L-O-V-E. Love is a solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. For the evolution and blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is a solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. For the evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning and welcome back to the Self Love Show. We are so excited to tune in to you live always, every week. So grateful to have this opportunity. I'm Dawn Light, your co-host, and my beautiful sister here, Trish Wright, is my other co-host. We are the Self Love Show. And for those that are new, welcome. And for those that are joining us always regularly, we're so grateful for you to be here. And in case you don't know, just in case you don't know, we are on every platform. So I invite you to go and check us out. YouTube, Facebook, all the places, Spotify, Apple, we have podcasts. So we have so many gems of goodness from the last, we're approaching our 4th year this coming year. And so it's exciting. And who doesn't want more self-love into their life, right? And to promote that and to deepen it and call it forward and strengthen it in our relationships. And that is so important. So it's our message, it's our why, to love you up weekly and give you good tidbits of just juicy love. And so we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Melody Godfred. And so the ABCs of self-love with Melody. Self-love is a daily commitment to honoring your authentic self. Self Love Philosopher Melody Godfred will teach you how to joyfully honor your authentic self by following her ABCs of self-love. Melody Godfred is the self-love philosopher. As an author, entrepreneur, and speaker, she is devoted to empowering people to love themselves and transform their lives. Her poetry has been featured by Oprah Magazine and Today with Hoda and Jenna, among others, for its wisdom and ability to deeply resonate and uplift. Her best-selling debut poetry collection, Self Love Poetry for Thinkers and Feelers, was recognized as one of the best poetry books of the year by Women's Day. And her guided journal, The ABCs of Self-Love, was featured by Hudson Booksellers at over 300 airports across the United States. Yay! Melody's latest poetry collection, The Shift, Poetry for a New Perspective, reframes how we see and move through this brave new world and was nominated for a 2022 Choice Award by Goodreads in the poetry category. Melody's books are also available as ebooks and audiobooks, which she narrated. And you can learn more. We'll put her links in the chat. But welcome, Melody. We're really grateful to have you on today.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Trish. I am so happy to be here.
Yay.
I'd love to start off with a little bit about how we got to knowing that self-love is the place to put energy and attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the world is a little crazy right now. And there's a lot of just tumultuous, tough challenges. And it takes a lot of effort to live in the world, just to move through the world and to keep one safe in psychologically and mentally, physically, and all of that. And oftentimes I've found that sometimes it's easier to check out with God knows what. It could be like Instagram or Netflix or another person, or drugs, alcohol, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and all of those things. And I think that is a place to really I would love to start here is how maybe our strategies before when we were checking out and what led us to kind of be no, I think it's self-love and learning how to find something here.
I think for me, sometimes we discover a need in its deepest absence. And it isn't until you've lived without self-love for a time that you realize just how desperately you want to come home to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we can all get by for a pretty long while, prioritizing other people, living outside of our authentic selves, running ourselves down to the bone without giving ourselves time to rest, to reset, to reconnect. But then the day comes where you just can't anymore. And I know for me, that came in 2015. And it came at a funny moment because it came when I had seemingly accomplished everything I had set out to accomplish as a person. I had finished my education. I had a law degree. I had started a business. I had 2 children. I had a house. I had a husband. I even had the picket fence. I mean, like, isn't that when you're supposed to be happy? When I reached the pinnacle of my own mountain of success and discovered I'd left myself behind and I wasn't able to be joyful in this beautiful life I had built, is when I realized that without self-love, which I believe truly is a commitment to leading with authenticity, you can have everything and it will mean nothing to you. And to your point, the world is a crazy place right now. It feels like we're in the upside down. I said that just last night to someone. I'm like, how? This can't be real. And I think in this moment, self-love can serve a greater purpose, which is not just to give us tools for taking care of ourselves, but also for allowing us to connect with each other and take care of each other. Because I don't think there's ever been a time where we needed each other more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that you said, like, these are the people that I work with, right? Is mostly, my clientele is mostly like very powerful men in high C-suite positions.
Mm-hmm.
And what they find is that they did all the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting here midlife and like, why? I've done all the things. I have all the things. And I'm still deeply unsatisfied and unhappy. Mm-hmm. I don't have a connection to my sexuality. My wife and I don't like each other anymore. We're not, I don't feel connected. And I'm seeking novelty and nostalgia constantly to fill something inside of me. Mm-hmm. And, Donna and I talk about this a lot. And it's one of the big things on the show is like how society has really put a lot of pressure on us to be productivity machines. Mm-hmm. That productivity is our worth. It is not. I hate to break it to you. And like for those of you who are listening. And that is one of the most harmful things that society, I mean, there's many things, but one of the most harmful things that society has really embedded in us is that we need to be productive. Mm-hmm. I'm having this really cool experience right now in my life where, okay, it's midterms at UC Berkeley, and these kids are tripping. They are tripping. They are just stressed. And I see a girl yesterday. She's walking. She just looks rough. She looks like she's having a rough day. And I walked past her and I was like, I just don't feel right about that. And I made up a story. I stopped and I was like, do you know where Doe Library is? Of course, I know where the Doe Library is. And I would just to
connect.
And I was like, yeah, well, can I walk with you? Are you going that way? And reminding her that I know that these interesting points that we set for ourselves, that we put so much weight on, whether it's a test or a job or a project or a launch or finding a partner or whatever it could be, whatever your thing is, that isn't part of your worth. And when you get there, if you said, leave yourself behind, you left yourself behind. If you get there and you've left yourself behind, it actually doesn't feel fulfilling. And so what I said to her, I was like, hey, the day is beautiful. You've got this. You can only try so hard. You can't try more than your best. You got here. You're trying your best. I'm certain that you're trying your best. So remember to have a little fun and stay great. And when I left to the library, she was like, yeah. And
well, it's so funny. You talk about doing your best. And I have a daughter who's 11 and she's a perfectionist overachiever. I wonder where she got it from. And she always does her best. But that's not always a good thing. last year she was in 5th grade and her teacher would ask her to write a paragraph about something and she would write 11 because she had more to say than just one paragraph. And she would be up till 10 o'clock at night, just stressing out. And I told her this, and I think it's so important for people to hear. Not every situation deserves your best. Even midterms, like not every situation deserves your best. And part of self-love, part of getting to know your authentic self is understanding like when you're going to set a boundary. Because I am immensely powerful. Like my best is extraordinary. But do I need to apply that level of energy and effort to everything in my life? No, absolutely not. Even though I used to think I did. I used to think that, doing a report when I was a lawyer, like document review, I had to like triple, quadruple check my work. They didn't care. Like it was, they were paying a first-year lawyer to do it because it wasn't that important. Or if I'm planning a birthday party, I mean, I feel like a lot of moms fall victim to this. Like, do we really need the custom cake and the custom balloons and the perfect party favor and this? Like, do we really need to give it our best? No, it's about loving your child and being present with them and playing with them. And that is not my best. The best of me doesn't fall into the category of the organic, primal, present, joyful version of me. That's just who I am. It's not my best. It's my baseline. And sometimes in pursuing our best, we leave our baseline behind. And so I think that's really important. Like, you don't have to do your best all the time. And the trick is to know when you should and when you don't need to.
Discernment for the win.
I find it really beautiful what you're sharing, and it's really speaking loudly to my heart because the clients I serve are women and women that have really struggled in their life with deep spiritual issues stemming from trauma or stemming from like a bad relationship, from a parent, either the father wound or their mother wound. And, I serve sister, brother, auntie, uncle, all of it, right? Like, cause it's your family system, what you're born into, the dynamics that are there, your spiritual curriculum around your family units. And so that construct is actually built within our psychology. And we, just like you're sharing about your daughter and how she, the overachiever piece, like that's a learned behavior from you, right? She adopted that strategy, but that's also her soul's curriculum. She came in choosing that. And so when we are clear that we want to make major change in our life and we're ready to lay down these patterns for good, it takes deep spiritual grit to make those changes in your consciousness. And so it's not easy. And people think that like, oh, if I just choose a little bit of self-love and I just go on this journey and do a few forgivenesses and go to this workshop, then I'm going to be all good. And actually it's to change patterns in consciousness, which you're not going to get the same result from the same consciousness. You're going for the gold, and that is to shift your consciousness for good. So you're no longer relating to yourself from a place of lack or misunderstanding or doubt or depression, or how you relate to the issue is the issue. And so the curriculum of your family is built into you, and that is your beautiful opportunity in this lifetime to explore it. And is it a fit? Does it serve me anymore? Or am I just perpetuating my mother's process or my father's consciousness, or a blend of both? And is that showing up in your relationships? And is it serving you anymore? And so that's kind of the gist of the work I do in the world and how I help others. And it's really deep. And I just want to really commend you because I hear that you've made a radical shift in your consciousness to choose self-love. And it can be really, really, I hear this story so much around, the white picket fence, the career, everything. You've achieved the mountain of success, but you've left yourself behind. And that's really a very, I don't want to say common, but happens to many. And it's a time of spiritual awakening when that arrives in your life. And it's a time to lean in. And that's what we refer to in USM, our language, is the soul line, because that's goal line living. Goal line is like pursuing your education and 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and all the things. But really the truth is are you listening to your soul and what your soul came here to be and do authentically expressing from the soul? And when you start to lean in and look at your spiritual curriculum and start to pull back the curtain on all that stuff and really dive into the real healing work that's there, and you might be chewing on 6 generations deep of codependency work, or you might be chewing on 10 generations deep of trauma and abuse and oppression work, right? Like, you don't know until you pull back the curtain and start really exploring it. But not only are you healing it for yourself, you're healing it for your family that has come behind you, and you're also healing it for the generations that come after you. It's making major impact. You don't realize it, but when you lean into your consciousness at this level and start doing that inner work, you're making major impact on the earth. And I know that the earth feels topsy-turvy right now, and how could all this, chaos be happening? But it is a time of awakening. And are you going to choose your awakening? Because it's happening in service for you at every moment. And I've got like major hair on my arms saying that. It is a time of awakening, and awakening into the greater expanded you that you've come here to be and choose and do and express your gifts, your authentic expression.
I'm lucky because I have twins. So I shared with you about my daughter, Stella. I also have another daughter, Violet. And they have been the ultimate social experiment because environmentally, they've had the same upbringing. Everything about how they've been raised is the same. And yet they are two completely different people. And my husband and I are very different. I was born in Iran. My parents escaped to flee religious persecution when I was 3 months old. A lot of generational trauma in me and my family. And then my husband grew up in Alaska, and his mom, for example, is born of farmers who have been in the United States for 300 years. And it's not that they haven't had a hard life. They did have a very hard life, but it was a different kind of generational foundation. And my daughters, you can see it. The one who inherited my DNA is the most vigilant person that has ever existed. I mean, she hears a noise and she's like, what was that? Like, if we're having a conversation and she's in the next room, if anything I say sounds remotely alarming, what happened? Is everyone okay? Whereas my other daughter, she's just looking at the birds and the bees. She loves hummingbirds. She's looking at the sky. She's looking up. She's not watching out. So that's really the difference between them. And yet, despite the fact that there is this generational difference in how they're wired, they're both so incredibly receptive to a new perspective, to the toolkits I'm giving them, to learning about self-love and how to get to know who they are and make the world a more tolerable place. And regardless of the baggage that we have to unwind, regardless of the trauma we've personally endured or our family legacy has imbued in our DNA, I think the magic of the self is that we can repair ourselves. And like you said, then we unleash this generational lifting and healing that transcends our own experience and changes the world in that process, because we change the frequency, we change the energy. And every day I have this opportunity to kind of witness these two extraordinarily different people learn to nurture their nature, which is what I always talk about. It's not nurture versus nature. It's about recognizing what your nature is and nurturing it. And I think that is another really big component of self-love, is understanding and gaining that awareness of who you are, and then embracing yourself wholly and finding a way to build a life where you are in alignment instead of in opposition.
Absolutely.
To the world in which you live.
so juicy. I resonate completely with what you're saying. I had to let go of so much to arrive at alignment with, like, to be the person I am today, because, you know, it's about who you're becoming in the world. And a lot of times we might be engaging in things that are really aren't serving our greater capacity and who we really are becoming. And sometimes it takes great sacrifice to become the person, the version of yourself you are leaning all the way into and saying yes to, that higher self
I
version.
say that all the time. It's not about what you're willing to say yes to. It's about what you're willing to say no to. Like, what are you willing to let go of? I mean, even for me today, my full-time job is being an author, a poet, and a speaker. But a few years ago, I was running 2 businesses and writing books at the same time and being a mom to 3 kids.
Ooh.
And it was because I was so afraid of letting go of anything, because it made me feel so unsafe to let go, that I just kept racking up new jobs. Like normal people, you get a new job, you end your old job. I just kept layering on top of each other.
Whoa.
And it's because I was not willing to say no to anything, because I was so afraid of being vulnerable in that way, to truly commit with clarity to my vision for myself and really bet on myself. And so that's been a huge lesson, because we're in such a yes culture. Like, be a girl boss, say yes to everything. And I did that for 10 years until I realized that the true girl boss, like, is the woman who's a boss of herself and knows what her needs are and is able to do whatever it takes to honor them.
I love this. You know, one of the
I
things,
love this too.
one of the things that I think about a lot, I guess what my heart is as a sociologist. So I'm constantly thinking about how society impacts individuals and how individuals impact society. And it's such a pervasive thought to have, like, say yes to this, or conform or contort for love, or do these things. And it's oftentimes not, it's a strategy to get certain needs met. And it's not actually an authentic experience or response. Like, I mean, how, for everyone listening, and even for you all in the past, like, how often did you abandon yourself for something, for your partner or for your job? And how much did you lose yourself? And so I think that one of the things that's happening in the world is that as we all start to shift away from this codependent patterning and shift away from, like, kind of the societal abuses that have literally just been, like, kind of like forced into our familial structures for safety, you know, to get our needs met, you know, like, it's historically we've conformed to society's rules so that we're safe and we're not getting our heads chopped off, like, for real though. And I mean, how many people do you know right now that would have been witches?
I mean, I'm a witch, so I don't know.
Do you
It's
see, like,
definitely in my bloodline. I mean, my mom and I, we can communicate telepathically all the time.
exactly. So how many people
Well,
do
I
you
would not be here in another time. I would definitely have been burned at the stake, 100%.
choose to conform to fit into society's needs?
I guess
And-
full body chills.
Yeah. And then society tells us how we're supposed to relate to people. So monogamy
Well,
is
it's also like society tells us to be digestible, to be quiet and to smile, and, you know,
On your
to,
pretty face.
yeah. And what I wrote some new poetry for my book, The Shift. Urban Outfitters did a special edition. They asked me to write some new poems for it. And one of the pairs of poems, thank you, is about, you know, the before and the after. And the before is, we're shapeshifters. Like, you tell me to smile, I'm going to smile. And the after is, I'm going to have a meltdown, because maybe if I melt down, I'll drip down into who I actually am. And I've been doing this new workout class where you're invited to scream. And it has been the most physically healing.
I want to come to this workout.
Oh my, they have classes online. It's called The Class. I'm not like I don't get paid. I'm not a coach. I'm just like a huge fan of this platform. It's a movement class with amazing music, but like, expressing yourself, breathing and screaming and grunting and just being embodied with your full voice, it feels so good. Imagine if women were given permission and were given spaces to use their voice to its fullest potential without being told they're angry or a bitch or, unruly or, too aggressive. I think it's really important, and it's hard because back to my daughters, like if they raise their voices, I'm always like, hey, calm down. But maybe sometimes I should tell them, go to the yard and let it out. Like, you want to scream? Just please don't do it in my in my ear. I'm a highly sensitive person. I can't handle loud noises, but go.
Yeah.
And I just think part of that awakening you're describing is just not settling for our smallest, quietest, most conforming, perfect version anymore.
And that's what I think that some of this disrupting of the world is that there are people who really want to keep where it was because it benefited certain people, because it was an easy way to live. Easy, I'm using this. And now there are people in the entire world who are like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel
I don't
authentic.
think it makes sense for anybody, regardless of where you are, what level you live at. I can't help but imagine a world where we just devolve. My brother said this the other day. He's like, I just want to devolve and go live in a forest.
Oh,
He's like, can I just be a primate? Like, can I just take it back a notch and just be in the sunlight, swing off the trees, eat some berries, go in the, stream?
In the lake. Yeah.
Whereas I swear 5 years ago, I would have scoffed. And I was like, no, we live in Los Angeles. We live in the best place. We should get more stuff. We should plan more vacations. We should work harder. We should become like a millionaire. Now I'm just like, how much can I get for my house? And where can I live where I can get a farm and just live off the land and not even have the internet anymore? And I did not see that coming. I did not ever think that I would want to be off the grid, but I deleted Instagram off my phone a little over a week ago, and I haven't
Wow.
itched to install it once. Like, that's crazy. I was on it like 8 hours a day. How am I fine without it? And I think we're all just a little too tapped into the machine. Like we're just a little too comfortable being digitally guided at all moments. And I, for one, am so ready. In one of the poems in my book, in the shift, says, rise by the sun, retire by the moon, and in between make a life worth living. And like, that's what I want. That simplicity.
Taking it back to like grandma and grandpa sitting on the front porch and drinking iced tea, watching the sunset, like totally bringing back memories of my childhood. Yeah,
I feel that. I got teary when you said that. You did go back to your childhood. I felt it.
Yes. Oh, so juicy. And yeah, you really are speaking to the heart of how I feel, because there's this aversion to constantly, like, I coach online, I'm online a lot. And then there's this aversion of like really ramping up my level of marketing and all of what it takes to do all of that. And there's some part of me that is like, has such an aversion to it. And it's not because I'm not authentic. I share authentically all the time. And when I write copy, it's from a really raw, authentic place. It's just, I think this is what it is. It's like, I have this resistance of like, I don't want to be tapped into the computer frequency every millisecond of my life. I want to live my life and like be with my family and be outside and do things and experience,
Yeah.
So yes. Yeah, it's like my soul craves the balance there.
Yeah. And it's not easy. Our world is certainly not geared towards what we're describing.
Nope.
And money is a very real thing, and we all need it, and we could all use more of it than we have. And I think that really is the challenge. Like, we can sit here and talk about how beautiful it is to rest and to do less and to honor your authentic self and blow up your career and do what you were meant to do. But that it's a privilege to even speak those words. At the end of the day, the reality is like we all need money to survive. That may mean taking a job that is totally not aligned with your authentic self. And the core is like, okay, well, how can you make other moments in your day aligned? How can you fill your cup? How can you make sure that your identity isn't your work and that we're more like the Europeans who work to live, whereas Americans who live to work? Like, how can we just always remember that you are not defined by what you do,
Yes,
even if it really feels like that's the case?
absolutely. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons, like, so we have a team, right, that helps us, and they're always like, well, we can work on the weekends. And I was like, no, you can't. I was like, you've got to have rules, like, and I'm always just like pushing for them to go live their life and go travel and to really like it's on us really to show people how it can be. And so
Mhm.
I'm constantly like pushing for things for them and, being like, it doesn't have to be this way. What I would like to do is know about your family, what's going on in your life. How can I support you outside of this? Like, what's this? What's that? How's Poppy, which is, Russell's daughter, and like, how is she doing in her, like, she loves to perform, like, how's she doing there? Like, I would rather talk about that than like how to blow this thing up or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really is about coming back to self and really sitting with like how to be authentic even in these places where you can't be fully yourself. Like, how can
Mhm.
you still find that nurturing and that place where you can be true?
Mhm.
Um,
I'd love to speak a little bit real quick about that piece because I remember how hard it was for me to make a transition from my old job that was like golden shackled handcuffs where I made a lot of money, but my soul was like being sucked. Like it just was so uncomfortably hard for years of my life. And it was tied to healing that father wound.
Mm.
And I remember, going through graduate school and still being in that place and wondering I would be in this expanded state of consciousness and like deep healing and like this reverent place when I would be in class and with my people that I just felt so resonant with. And then I would leave and, fly a million miles away and go work this job that was like the absolute opposite of it. And it almost felt like heaven and hell. I was navigating heaven and hell at the same time is kind of how it felt. And even though don't fully believe in that construct, I just, there was pieces of it that did feel very real for me. And I remember I remember asking my teacher at one point, like, I'm still not understanding. Like, I've been telling spirit so clearly, I'm ready to let this go. I'm doing deep inner work around it. I'm ready to shift. I've rearranged everything that I could rearrange physically to tell spirit I'm so ready. I've gone and worked at different places to shift the dynamic. I've continuously making baby steps in the direction of changing it. And I think that's really important is if you're stuck in something that is not it and it's not it, but you still need it to survive and live, then how can you make incremental baby steps in your daily day to day, knowing that you're following that spiritual line of moving in the direction you want to go in?
Yes.
And that was very helpful piece. And not to judge myself for still being there
Mhm.
was a really key component. And it's not about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. Can you bring more love, presence, and consciousness to that moment?
Yeah.
And like I remember in my feeling like this place of disdain and disgust that I was still there, and I had to turn that around. I had to turn that relationship around, and I had to actually love that part that felt disgusted by it, love that part that felt so ashamed that I couldn't let go, love that part that was so afraid of
Mhm.
completely starting over, because that's what I had to do in a nutshell. I had to let go of my whole income stream to start what I do now. And it was like this deep place of fear and insecurity and like doubt and I mean so much trauma there. And I had to just wildly jump off the cliff and say, okay, God, I know you have me. And that's exactly how it happened in my world. And was able to let go, and I was able to move forward. And here I am standing in the confidence and the security of like, I'm showing up in my work, and all the way. And that feels so good to say. And yeah, I just wanted to speak to that piece of like, it's not what you're doing, but can you bring love to the part inside that's hurting over and judging your situation as you're not able to do it. Because the truth is,
right? You're describing grace, like giving yourself grace.
Yeah. And that bathing myself in that and reminding myself to just bring love and presence, even though I might not want to be doing that job anymore. I'm going to bring love here and not judge myself and not judge the situation anymore, and bring pure gratitude for its blessing in my life, even though I'm done with it. Thank you. Thank you. And I know that the new thing will appear soon. And I know that I'm going to be on that new path there. Like my foot is there, my toe is there, even though my whole other foot is still stable in this reality. I got my baby toe over there, and like, seeing yourself in that bridge, and loving yourself.
And being patient. I mean, sometimes, we've all heard the expression, the day you plant the seed is not the day, the tree grows, or you sow the wheat or whatever.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times, especially because of social media, like we see someone's success and we think they just like flipped a switch and it happened. And they don't share that, like, actually, no, like for me, for example, and I have shared this story. It's amazing how resonant it is. I wrote my first book in 2009. I quit my job as a lawyer. I wrote a book. I tried to get a publishing deal. I sent it out to 75 agents and publishers. I got rejected by everybody. I self-published back when nobody was self-publishing, and with so much shame, right? And I just like acted like it didn't even happen. I started another business. And then it wasn't until 2021, after I self-published again, this time successfully, that a publisher came to me and I signed a 3-book deal. It took 12 years. Like it took 12 years for me to get the book deal I wanted back in 2009.
Wow. Thank you for voicing that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I just think we all think that it was just like, oh, I'm so brilliant. Like I wrote a book, I got a deal, everything just fell in place for me. It's like, no, I cried myself to sleep. It was terrible. I had so much shame that it didn't happen the way I thought it would, or the way it should.
And someone told you or promised you.
Yeah. Right. Like we just have to disconnect from being so connected to how it's going to happen, and just know in our heart of hearts that what is meant for you will find you, as long as you're devoted to it. And I think that word devotion is something I'm coming to a lot lately. I was in a class and the instructor said, we are all devoted in all moments of life to something. It could be that you're devoted to your negative thinking. You could be devoted to Netflix. You could be devoted to your victim mentality, or you could be devoted to like the book you're writing, or the positive relationship with yourself that you're cultivating. Like everything is devotion. Every second of our attention is an act of devotion. So what are we devoted to? Like that is the most powerful question I think we can all ask ourselves, just to realize that every moment of the day is an act of devotion, and we get to choose what we are devoted to.
Gorgeous.
Oh, this is such a good conversation. I really appreciate you. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude to get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise.
It's so sweet, right? We're just
chilling.
I know. I wish that I could buy our guests a cup of tea and actually sit on some really comfy couches and just do this together. What am I devoted to? Maybe that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're wanting to share with our viewers and our listeners.
Absolutely. We've touched on so many aspects of what I was going to share. So I'm so grateful that we've created this beautiful foundation together. So today I'm here to talk about the ABCs of self-love. The ABCs of self-love is a book that I wrote because after starting a self-love movement and getting to know thousands of women around the world, I kept getting asked the same question, which is, I want to love myself. I want to choose myself, but I don't know how. And I came across this quote, which maybe you've heard, and no one knows who wrote it, but I do think it is one of the most powerful quotes, at least on my journey, it has been. The quote says, "So many years of education, yet no one has taught us how to love ourselves or why it is so important." If I could just go back to high school and change one chemistry class to a class about self-love, one calculus class, or, just one semester of learning at that younger age what it means to love myself, I really do think the trajectory of my life could be different. And so I've created the ABCs of self-love to help people of all ages embark on their self-love journey. Because for me, self-love is very simple. It is a commitment to honoring your authentic self. Now, you're probably asking the next question, which is, well, what is my authentic self? I'm a believer that each of us was put on this planet without a replica, past, present, or future, for a reason. I think we are each uniquely designed and uniquely purposed, and all we have to do to claim our purpose is be ourselves. Now, in a culture that's constantly asking you to do more, to be more, to conform, to be perfect, being yourself isn't always easy, and it certainly isn't always celebrated. But I can't help but think what the world would look like if each of us had the tools to step into our authentic selves, lead from that place of alignment and love, and then use that to be of service to each other. So I'm going to use the next few minutes with you to talk about how to connect with your authentic self, how to identify what that is, and then how to ultimately reach what I think is the goal of being in your authentic self on a daily basis. So drawing upon my own story a little bit, and we talked about this earlier, I was raised with an ego-driven sense of self. By that, I mean accomplishing something, making it to the top of the mountain, moving forward and upward on a linear path. That is what I felt my life's purpose was. The problem is when you are leading from your ego-driven self, some of the things that will happen are that you will start seeking external validation. You will find yourself oftentimes in competition. You will be seeking perfection. You will be clouded with moments of doubt, shame, regret, and resentment. And ultimately, you will experience burnout. It's inevitable. On the other hand, I think there is another option, and that is being driven by your essence. Your essence is your authentic self. It isn't your ego, which lives up here. It is your essence, which lives in your soul. And when you lead from a place of your essence-driven self, instead of external validation, you seek internal validation. You pursue not competition, but wholeness. You experience authenticity. You celebrate your values and your vision. You feel filled with energy, with joy. You make an impact. You're at peace. And most of all, you have access to your inner knowing, which is your intuition. So for me, when I was ego-driven and I was moving up that line forward and up, I became a litigation attorney. Instead, now that I've discovered self-love and I've committed to honoring my authentic self, instead of moving upward on a line and forward, I now realize that for me, authenticity is not about moving forward, but moving inward. So instead of a line of accomplishment, I invite you to think about an authenticity orb, where success is determined not by how much you achieve, but how deep you go within yourself and how connected you are with your authentic self. And the beauty of this is that it's never too late to do it. You never fall behind. With the linear path, it's easy to look at all the predetermined milestones that we're offered. And if you don't hit them at the right time, just like everyone else is, you feel behind. But it is absolutely never too late to claim your authentic self and to honor your authentic self and to love yourself. So I want to give you some tools for letting your authentic self lead. And these are all chapters in my book, The ABCs of Self-Love, which is a guided journal, which will not only explain in greater detail what these things are, but also provides exercises for putting them into practice, because I think self-love in theory is great, but self-love in action is what actually transforms your life. So when we're talking about authenticity, I like to keep a picture of my childhood self as my lock screen on my phone. I believe that when we're children, we have this intrinsic knowing of who we are before we start to conform to the world, before we get the dust, is what I call it, the dust of doubt, of regret, of shame, of fear. Before the dust, all there is you. And so I use that picture on my phone as a reminder, so that when I see it, I ask myself, am I letting my authentic self lead? Now you may ask, like, okay, I had a traumatic childhood. I don't want a picture of that. Pick any picture that you are in your deepest joy and in your deepest truth. Put it on your phone. And when you look at her or him, let that person be your leader. Now, throughout the book, I talk about ways to use your mind, your body, and your soul to click into your authentic self. I'm just going to give you a few examples across those three areas for ways that you can connect with your authentic self easily on a daily basis. So when it comes to your thoughts, there are 2 chapters in the ABCs of self-love that deal with your thinking. The first one is H, which is happy thoughts. And, positive psychology sometimes gets a bad rap as being like too surface. The truth of the matter is, even if you're suffering a mental health crisis, it is helpful to know that your thoughts are in fact your choice. Every situation can be viewed a number of different ways. And if you find yourself stuck in a rut and you feel like your world doesn't align with you, ask yourself, can I change my thinking about this? For me, this was transformative. As someone who's highly sensitive and empathetic, people would engage with me and I would automatically fear, the worst thought. I would embody it. I've upset them. They're mad at me. And now I've learned to choose a different thought, one that serves me. How they're acting probably has nothing to do with me. And if it does, let me ask them and make it better instead of spiraling within myself. The other chapter that is really important when it comes to your mental clarity and creating space for your authentic self is questioning negativity. We are constantly being bombarded with negativity now more than ever, whether it's the friend who constantly calls you to complain, whether it's social media that gets more clicks when it's bad news instead of good news. And so that's what the algorithm feeds you. The next time you see something negative, think about this thought. My body is made of trillions of cells. I am done letting one negative thought make all of them suffer. Because we experience this visceral response to negativity that completely takes us over and shuts us down. So the next time you encounter a negative thought, pause. Ask yourself, am I going to let this in or am I going to move right past it? So those are 2 ways that you can really monitor and choose your thoughts in order to allow more space for your authentic self, which I believe is grounded in joy and peace and ease, not negativity. And the other thing you can do is direct your thoughts by dreaming. The chapter in the ABCs of self-love for the letter D is about the daily dream. It's a practice of dreaming out loud with a friend every day so that your dreams become as much a part of your waking life as they are a part of your rest. So what would it look like if every day at 12 noon, you and your friend had a standing text message where you shared a dream with each other? This may seem like such a simple, silly thing to do, but I cannot tell you how many of my dreams actually ended up coming true. And I have the text receipts to prove it. So those are ways that you can work on your thinking. The next way that you can really tap in and connect with your authentic self is by your actions, how you move, how you are physically in your body. I'm someone who spent many years not connected with my physical self. I'm sure a lot of you, after all these years on Zoom, can connect with this feeling of being just a body that's a vessel for your mind. And as we just learned through the first part of my talk, your mind isn't always going to lead you to the best place. So one of the poems that I share in the ABCs is, if I can't move my mind, I move my body. If I can't move my body, I move my mind. Either way, movement heals. So I have several playlists that I've created on Spotify. You can just search for Melody Godfred and you'll find them, that are devoted to movement. So put one on, shake it out, move your body, go for a walk, do some gardening, whatever it takes to be in your physical body to such an extent that you can't let your thoughts lead you anymore. You are too grounded in your body. And another benefit of movement is that it actually releases old emotions and thoughts that are trapped in your muscles. So it is truly the way to liberate your authentic self from the cloud of your thoughts, of your doubt, of your pain, of the things that linger after things are long gone, things we carry forward that maybe we don't need to. So movement is the second tier. And then the third thing I want to talk about is your intuition. Your intuition is the voice of your authentic self. It is your inner knowing that has nothing to do with thinking. And the beauty of your intuition is that you can activate it by doing a few simple things. The first and most important is to take a digital detox. Your intuition doesn't like to scream at you. It's quiet, it's delicate, and even though it's always there, it will not get past your doom scrolling to get your attention. So for 24 or 48 hours, as much as you can, get off social media, get off your devices, and instead ground yourself. You can do this through breath work, the simplest breath work, 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out, find a quiet place, root into your body. Other ways to make space for your intuition: movement, dance, what we just talked about in the movement section. These all activate your intuition as well. And believe it or not, even just taking a shower. There's something about the water hitting your body that can become incredibly meditative and healing if you approach it with that intention. And these are all just little small ways to have clarity about what you want. And hopefully what you want is to let your essence, your authentic self lead you, to let your intuition be your voice of reason instead of the jumble of thoughts in your head that always make you feel like who you are isn't enough or that you've done something wrong. Your authentic self is always enough. It's always exactly what it needs to be. And it's not about being perfect or the best. It embraces your light and your dark equally and just perceives you to be the unique soul that you are and the unique purpose soul that each of us are on this planet. So what is the goal, right? Because we are goal-oriented people. What is the goal of choosing your authentic self? What is the benefit? The benefit is joy. Joy is not happiness. Happiness is something you feel in response to an external stimulus. It's, I got an A on the test, so I'm happy. I got a new car, so I'm happy. You know, my sports team won, so I'm happy. That's happiness. It can come, it can go. It's externally driven. Joy instead is your baseline sense of self. It is the quiet hum that fills you up. And no matter what happens external to you, it can't be taken away or disrupted. I know sometimes it's hard to know, especially in grim times like these, where your joy resides. It's hard when you've been trained to be productive, to accomplish, to take care of others, to be going at all times, to even know what joy feels like. So one other tool I want to share with you is one that I started many years ago, which is called the Joy List. I keep it on the Notes app on my phone. And every time I feel that ping of deep joy, I write down what triggers it. And sometimes when I'm at my lowest of lows and I feel like there's no way that I can be joyful, I read through my list and remember that as long as I am present, alive, breathing, and here in this moment, there is so much joy for me to claim within myself. And I have that joy list as a constant reminder of that. The last thing I'll leave you with is a gift. And that gift is boundaries. B for boundaries, from the ABCs of self-love. And I'm going to reframe for you how boundaries are perceived, because boundary feels like you're being an awful person. You're saying no to someone. What if instead you framed a boundary not as what you're saying no to, but what you're saying yes to? You may be saying no to someone else's request, but you're saying yes to your mental health and well-being. That is a powerful yes. So today, I hope that I've inspired you and given you some tools for embarking on your own self-love journey. And if nothing more, ask yourself this: what do I want to say yes to? And which boundary am I going to set to honor that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely. I have put how to get the ABCs of self-love if you want to dive deeper into that practice.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I put it in the chat. And for all of you who are listening on the podcast or radio right now, you can find it at the ABCs of Love on Amazon and Melody's website. So tell us more about your work and what you're doing.
So I'm Melody Godfred, the Self Love Philosopher. Everyone's like, what does that even mean? It means that I ask questions about self-love and I explore their answers. And I've been doing this for over 8 years. In 2016, I started Fred and Far, my self-love movement, which was powered by the self-love pinky ring. I wanted to give women a symbol of self-belonging and a reminder that they deserve to be a priority in their own lives, because I myself needed that so desperately after becoming a mother and being a business owner. Every day now, my life is spent writing, talking, sharing about self-love in all its facets. I have a newsletter called Self Love Confidential that I publish every week. I've released 3 books in the last 2 years. 2 are poetry. One is the ABCs, which is a guided journal. And when it comes to my next step, what I would love to do more than anything is continue speaking about self-love, especially with younger girls, because I can't help but think what a generation of self-loving women could do for this world. I think there's so much beauty and power and wholeness and purpose that will come of that. And it is my life's mission to share this in a very actionable, digestible way, because we all deserve it. And I think we all benefit when we show up from a place of authenticity and wholeness.
Great. Well, may we meet again in person, and where we have just like the spaces that we can love the new kids coming in. I'm really like, because I spend so much time with Gen Z right now, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so cool. And I'm really excited for the generation after that. I'm like, oh my God, you're so cool. Like
they get it. I mean, it's funny because like my book, The Shift, which is all about shifts I made during the pandemic, it's a series of before and after poems. So like the before is like really heavy, closed up, fearful way of something. And the after is the more grounded present. And people my age, they're like, pfft. But Gen Z, they're like, yes, like they get it. Like they are ready to make the shift. They are tired of being in resistance. They're tired of the hustle. They're tired of hating themselves. Like they are ready for being whole and happy and of the earth instead of just on the earth. And so it's really exciting to see that like that's who it's connecting with, because I wrote it about myself, like a 40-year-old mom during the pandemic. Like that was where these poems were born. And yet it's the like 20-year-olds, you know, at Urban Outfitters that are buying the book. So it's really, it's really curious to see. And like same with ABCs, it's at Five Below, which is I don't know, are you guys familiar with Five Below?
No.
It's like a discount retailer that caters to Gen Z. These stores are amazing. They have like pool floaties, candies, and then they have this really small book table where they have like maybe 20 books. And one of the books that they have is the ABCs of Self-Love. Before they picked up the book, it had sold, I don't know, maybe more than 10,000 copies. They've sold now over 100,000 copies of this book, and it is being sold to teenagers. So I'm just so excited to see like what they do with this information, because I never had this. Did you guys ever have this growing up?
We've been radically supportive.
Right? Like no one taught me any of the stuff that's in this book. And so I'm just so excited to see what the turnover is going to be like. Okay, 100,000 of you have this now. Like, what are you going to do with it? That feels very exciting.
What I love about Gen Z is that they're kind of harsh, like Gen X. Like they don't give a like Gen X, and they're so connected and in tune and woke and like really just like here, and they see all the work that has been done and they're just implementing it. It's so fascinating. And they have all these terms like like silent quitting and bed rotting, which are kind of crass, but they're
Yeah.
do you know what bed rotting is? Just to give you all a
No, please teach us.
definition. It's the necessity to take days where you lay in bed. And I was like, I don't hate this. I'm you know what? I'm there. I just didn't have a name for it. And then there was the one of silent quitting is working your wage. So yeah, like if you're getting paid a certain level and they're asking you for more and you're like, no, I was paid for this wage and just working that. And it's been like, they teach me so much. I'm so excited for them. Thank you for taking over the world. We love you.
They're not putting up with the BS.
I love it.
They're like, this does not make sense. And it'll be interesting to see like how, our institutions adjust, in response to that. Like, I'm not going to drink this Kool-Aid. It doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put more of your links in for self-love poetry, for the shift, and your website in
Thank you.
to follow
Thank
you.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Your presence is just delicious and yummy, and
What a
you
compliment.
speak so beautifully and invite us into a deeper conversation of self-love. And I really appreciate all your hard work and grit that it's taken to get here, and like all the amazing shifts you've had to make in your life to embody you now as the writer, as the author, thank you for showing the way forward and giving us all of this is how it's done, and the learning that's taken place on a soul level for you to arrive here. It's just so, thank you for your story and sharing so beautifully and openly. Really resonates. Your journey resonates to me. It's like I have bits and pieces of my own journey is similar in so many ways. And yeah, I just celebrate you and this book, and being all the copies sold and who it's being sold to. And it's just such a gift.
Thank
Really.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm a little teary because I'm still an overachiever and I'm still a perfectionist, and I still live in a culture that tells me like it's not enough. And so I don't often pause to be like, good job. Like you've done something special. And so you forcing me to hear it and just take it in, I appreciate it because I don't often allow myself that.
Well, give us a call. We'll do it anytime.
Thank you. I told you I would try. I told you 50-50 chance. So you got me on the outro. So thank you.
Oh.
Anytime you need some love and support.
Thank you.
I'd love to give a big thank you to Roy and Russell, our team, for making this show happen every week and for really showing up and, communicating with our guests and even finding amazing guests that we can't even, like, it's not even in my realm of sight. And so thank you, Roy and Russell, for always just being awesome.
I know Trish always says the thank yous, but I want to say thank you, Roy and Russell. Love you so much.
Thank you to Dawn for your just like sweet showing up every day. Like every time we're here, like you just show up fully. Also, thank you to Love Coach Academy, Scott Katamas, Global Peace Tribe, and all of you for showing up in consistency and the radical devotion to self-love. And Melody, thank you for your time and your effort and your energy and the years of experience that it's taken you to get to this point. And thank you for being devoted to other people's freedom.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we will see you same time, same place next week.